Good morning, everyone. Jason Cannon with LFS here. Thank you again for attending our webinars. We're going to be going over the fully underwritten process today. Really looking forward to going through this with everyone here. As you can see, as usual, we have our questions box available. Any questions you have, don't be bashful. Feel free to shoot as many of them over to me as possible. The more questions, the better. We also have a handout there. If you are new to the industry or new to life insurance just in general, please make sure you click on that handout. Do yourself a favor, either download it to your desktop or print out a copy. It'll really come in handy, not just for you, but also to share with your clients to help them understand visually what the underwriting process entails. We will actually go over that handout here toward the end of the webinar as well. So if you have questions about the handout specifically, we will be addressing that later on here. So with getting started, as I said, we're going to be doing the fully underwritten process today. If you were on the calls 2 weeks ago, we went over the field underwriting process. And so that's for those of you who, again, maybe are new and don't understand some of this terminology. Field underwriting is when you're out there, when you're with your client, whether they're meeting you in your office or maybe you're at their home, and you're essentially doing an assessment of them. And you're asking them underwriting-related questions about their background, their health, their criminal history, their financial, all of that, gathering as much information as you possibly can so that you can get an accurate assessment so that you can quote them the underwriting class that you really feel they'll truly come in at if they do submit an application. That's also when you're gathering information so that you can maybe get a quote worked up by us to send over. So this is the next phase after after field underwriting. So you've done your field underwriting. At that point, you're going to get your application. And getting an application can be done a couple of ways. We have applications listed on the LFS website. You can get them there. Or you can always reach out to us with a phone call or an email. Let us know what application you need, which means, we need to know what carrier it is and what plan type you're looking for, the state that your client lives in. And we can certainly email that application over to you so that you can fill it out. And once you fill out that application, that brings you to what we're going to talk about here today, which is the fully underwritten process. How does it work? And more specifically, how does it work here at LFS? For those of you that maybe have been in the industry for a while and maybe worked through other brokerages or IMOs, we do things a little bit differently here, a little more streamlined. So we want to make sure not only that you understand the fully underwritten process, but the underwritten process here at LFS specifically. So with that being said, let's jump in here. When submitting an application, you really have two ways you can do it. You can email, which is usually the preferred method. You scan it into your computer, email it over, and you'll see here we have Lori and Karen's email addresses for you. You can fax the application. Here's our fax number. And you can mail in applications, but really the only things you ever really need to mail are if you collect a check or if you have 1035 forms where original forms are needed for that. Otherwise, email is usually going to be your best bet to get your application to us here at LFS. Once your application has been submitted to us and we've received it, we're going to do the following. We're going to scrub that application and make sure that all of the information is on there and is on there in an accurate and legible form. If we have any questions that are missing or maybe there's some answers that kind of don't make any sense, we'll reach out to you and get some clarification on those things to make sure that when we go to submit that app to the carrier, everything is in good order from day one, so that we don't have any unnecessary back and forth from the carrier to you. We will also order the ParaMed exam requirements. If you don't know what those are, don't worry. We're going to go over that here in just 1 second. And then once that's been ordered, we will submit the application directly to the carrier to actually start the underwriting process. So when we talked about the ParaMed exam, what that means is we're going to have an examiner that goes out to your client's home or possibly their place of business. They're going to ask your client all of the Part 2 or Part B questions that aren't on the full application, collecting all the rest of their medical background, basically. They're going to collect blood and urine samples from your client. And in some cases, some carriers have what's called an abbreviated exam, meaning that they're still going to collect the blood and urine, but then they're going to do a quick build blood pressure, take down their medications, and their tobacco history. All of these things vary from carrier to carrier, and also they can vary based off your client's age and face amounts. But in general, this is what your client's going to go through right up front there. After that, the carrier will order what are called home office reports. Those break down into an MVR, which is a motor vehicle report, an MIB, which is a check of the Medical Information Bureau, and a prescription check. So when you're talking to your client and you're either doing your field underwriting, or more importantly, you're actually taking the application, the full application, and you're talking to your client about, say, their driving record. You just want to really make sure to encourage your client to be as honest and upfront as possible about their driving history. You can't look at somebody and, for instance, say, oh, I can tell you have a bunch of speeding tickets or you've had your license suspended. And you got to let your client know it's not that you're here to judge them if they have a whole bunch of speeding tickets or something. It's just that their driving history, among many other things here, does weigh into their ultimate underwriting decision. So if they do have some speeding tickets, if they have had their license suspended, fine. Just make sure that they tell you as many details about that as possible, because the carrier is going to run a motor vehicle report and they will find that. So we just got to make sure that everything is divulged up front as thoroughly and as honestly as possible. Same thing goes for if they have prescriptions that they take. Make sure they just let you know all of them that are out there. Also, some reports that could potentially be ordered are a credit report or even a criminal history report. But again, these are going to be on a case-by-case basis, and they're not going to be ordered on every single application that you submit. On top of that, there could potentially be other requirements that get ordered, such as hazardous activities, foreign travel, business, financial, and even lifestyle and questionnaire reports. So for instance, with hazardous activities, when you're doing your field underwriting, that's actually something you should really bring up with your client. Hey, do you participate in anything out of the norm? You know, if they like to ride their bikes and things like that, that's fine. That's normal activity. But if they are, say, a scuba diver, you're going to want to make sure that you collect information about that. And I don't know about you, but I really don't know a lot about scuba diving, so I wouldn't even really know the first question to ask. Well, that's something you don't have to worry about, because every carrier, they have a scuba diving questionnaire, for example. So you can find that questionnaire on the LFS website, or you can reach out to us and let us know that your client's a scuba diver and you need the questionnaire, and we'll shoot it over to you. And that questionnaire walks you through everything that you need to ask your client to collect that information. So if they do participate in any of these activities here and you feel a little nervous because you don't know what to ask, the questionnaire literally walks you right through it. As far as the lifestyle questionnaire goes, these are going to be mainly requested where your client, if they have any drug or alcohol history and what they submitted on their application doesn't match up to maybe what the underwriter found in the underwriting process, then they may ask you to fill out one of these questionnaires with your clients. Also, medical records or an APS could be ordered. If you don't know what those are, don't worry, we'll go over that here in just 1 second. And lastly, potentially an inspection report could be required. And what that usually boils down to, and it can vary a bit from carrier to carrier, is it's usually based off either your client's age or potentially their face amount, like financial history type things. And usually what it comes down to is this is a telephone interview from the carrier to your client. So again, these are all potentially things that the underwriter could request, but none of these are going to be required on every single application. It's always going to be done on a case-by-case basis. So as far as medical records goes, what we usually hear them called is an APS, and an APS stands for Attending Physician Statement. That's basically all your doctor's records from a specific doctor or a facility, if they didn't necessarily have a specific doctor that they saw, and that's only going to be on a case-by-case basis. And we here at LFS will order that for you and your client. Most of the time, if an APS is requested, we can just go ahead and order it from that doctor or from that facility, and you don't really need any further involvement from your client. But do be aware, some facilities or some doctor's offices, they do have their own HIPAA forms that they require be filled out before they'll release any records. If that is the case, they will let us here at LFS know, and we will get that HIPAA form to you, the agent. You can meet with your client, get it signed and dated, send it back to us, and then we'll ship it over to the doctor's office or the facility so that they can process the request and send the records to the underwriter for review. After that, after all of the underwriting has been received and completed, you're going to have your application approved. Now, some of you may come from the P&C background or something, where some of the terms that we use here in life underwriting don't necessarily match up with what the P&C background has. So for those of you that don't know those things, what an approval means is that the underwriter has made their final decision and made their offer. They've said, this is what class we determined your client to come in at. We will then, here at LFS, we will let you, the agent, know what that approval is. And then we really encourage you to take that approval, talk to your client, let them know not only what their underwriting class was determined to be, but maybe also let them know, or definitely let them know, how that's going to affect their premium. Sometimes they'll come in highly rated, or sometimes they'll excuse me, what I mean by that is, say you applied it preferred for your client, and they came in at standard. Well, obviously that's a little bit of a lower underwriting class, and so their premiums are going to go up. And sometimes if their premiums go up, that's fine. It's still going to stay within their budget, so you can just let us know, yeah, that's great, go ahead and issue the policy. On the flip side of that, maybe you applied at standard, and your client was approved preferred, so now their premiums are going to go down. Again, maybe that's just fine, we'll leave it there. Or they may actually want to have, your client may want to have a higher death benefit now because they were planning on this certain premium, and now they can afford more death benefit. In either instance, that's where we really encourage you to review the underwriting decision with your client, make sure your client is happy and comfortable with everything before you get back to us and say, yes, issue the policy. Because if you get that underwriting decision received from us and you just say, yeah, go ahead and approve it, and then you go to deliver it to your client and the premiums don't match up or the underwriting class came in different, then you may ultimately still end up reaching out to us and asking us to reissue the policy. But then that's just going to add more time to this whole process, because then we have to reach back out to the carrier, have them reissue the policy, and send it out. So again, just talking to your client directly with the approval is the best way to go there. And again, this is just going over if the underwriting decision was different, we can just work with you, help you work up some quotes, and make sure that the premium is going to fit within your client's budget. At that point in time, once you've let us know that you want that policy issued upon the approval rating, there are really two delivery methods that the carriers are going to use. They're either going to mail a physical policy out to you to deliver to your client, a paper policy, or some carriers do an e-delivery where basically the policy is emailed to your client directly, and they e-sign the policy, delivery receipts, they go back to the carrier, and everything's done that way. Either way, if there are any delivery requirements requested from the carrier, that falls onto you, the agent, to make sure that you collect them as quickly as possible and obviously as thoroughly and accurately as possible. Get them back to us here at LFS. We will get them over to the carrier, and that will fulfill all of the delivery requirements so that we can then move on to have an actual active policy produced here. And as it states here, without delivery requirements being received, a policy is not bound and enforced. That's very important to understand, that you need to make sure you get those delivery requirements to us as quickly as possible. Once you've done that, once the initial premium is in and the carrier's received everything they need, you will receive a final email from us here at LFS letting you know this policy is enforced. That means your client is bound and covered by a policy, and not only that, but for you, the agent, your commissions will be released. So with all of this being said, what can you do to expedite this process? Well, starting off, the best thing to get going with is a full, complete application. Make sure everything is thoroughly completed and is as accurate as possible. When talking to your client about what to expect in the underwriting process, make sure that they do understand an examiner will be reaching out to them. They'll receive a phone call trying to schedule their paramed exam. So make sure they answer their calls and they keep themselves as open as possible. We all know that life happens. People have jobs and soccer practices and piano recitals and all that stuff. But if the client delays their paramed exam, that's going to put the underwriting process at a complete halt and really delay this process. So make sure that they're as open as possible to get that exam scheduled and completed as quickly as they can. Also, you as the agent will receive status emails from us here. Make sure you're in tune with your email box. You're receiving these status emails and responding to them as quickly and as thoroughly as possible. And if you haven't seen what a status email is like from us, we have a sample version of it here. So what you'll receive is basically an email in this exact format. At the top, you'll see in bright red, it says agent action required. Obviously, that just means either we here at LFS or the carrier needs something from you, the agent. And so we have the status column, which is the third column in from the left. And on the far right-hand side, we have your descriptions of what each one of these means. You've got outstanding, sent to carrier, and received by carrier. And so under the remarks section, you can see exactly what is going on as far as not just what the description of the requirement is, but if there are any specific remarks in there. If we've ordered the exam, for example, we'll tell you when it was ordered. If an APS was requested, it'll tell you what doctor it was from, that sort of thing. So for you, the agent, it's really important that every time you receive one of these status emails, open it up, read it thoroughly, and respond as quickly as possible. If you have questions about what it says on there, don't hesitate. Reach out to us. Either give us a call or shoot us an email. Let us know what it is that you have a question about. We'll explain it in detail about what we're looking for there and help you move along in this process. So don't let it sit there and get stale if you're nervous or if you don't understand what the email is asking for. Here is the new business workflow. This is what our handout is that I was talking about at the first of the call. Again, if you're new to this business, or even if you want to use this as a visual to explain to your client what's going to happen, because most average clients, they don't understand the underwriting process. And so sometimes being able to show them something like this really helps them kind of understand what's going on there. But here you'll see what happens from the very start to the very end of the underwriting workflow. So keep this handy if you really want something to rely on, to fall back on and refer to. So that is the end of this presentation. If you have any questions, we have the best contact info here. You can call us at the 360 number. You can also reach out via email to Lori or Karen at their email addresses there. And then we have our LFS website listed below. Thank you so much for being on our call. 2 weeks from today, we're going to have our next call in the underwriting process. And this one is going to focus on the basics of the e-app process. Electronic applications are becoming more and more popular with carriers, and they can be a little bit confusing and overwhelming sometimes, especially if you are new to the industry. So we're going to go over some of the ins and outs of the e-app process to really help you feel more comfortable about how that works and when you should and shouldn't use it. If you are new to LFS and you haven't had your onboarding call, please reach out and let us know. What we'll do in that call is we'll take 30 to 45 minutes, one-on-one, just with you, walk you through the website, answer any questions you have about where to locate things like applications and forms, how to get quotes worked up, anything that you need. And if you already have had your onboarding call and maybe you feel like you just need a refresher, that's fine too. Again, reach out to us. Let us know what you want to do. We'll compare our calendar to yours, and then we'll get you scheduled and walk you through that as quickly as possible. We have had a few questions come in here, so I'm going to jump into those now. One of the first questions we got here is, how will I know if any additional requirements are needed? That's a great question. And again, we kind of covered that right there at the end of the webinar here. You will receive your status emails. And in those emails, if an additional requirement is requested, maybe it's one of those questionnaires like a hazardous activity questionnaire. Maybe your client is a rock climber and you didn't find that out from them. They didn't tell you about that in the field underwriting process, and it came out during the underwriting process. Well, in your status email, you'll receive a notification that you need to go collect a hazardous activity questionnaire revolving around rock climbing. So again, make sure you check your email and check those status emails, because that's where you're going to find that out. Another question here, if a questionnaire is needed, where can I get that form? That's great. It ties into the first question there. There's two ways to get your forms or your questionnaires. You can get them off the LFS website. We have a section that's called Doing Business. You click on that, and then you'll scroll down. You'll find a blue button that's titled Forms and Apps. You can click on that, and it's just a series of drop-downs that'll walk you through the carrier and the product type and all that, and it'll get you to the questionnaires that you can then print out and go fill out with your client. Or if you want, you can just call us or email us. Let us know what questionnaire it is that you need, and we'll be happy to email that over to you. Good question. Here's another one that just came in. If I email you an app, do I need to mail the originals in as well? Great question. The answer is no. If you've emailed the application to us, that's all you need to do. We don't need to have an original on file or anything. Once we receive the email copy, we'll do that. We'll do the process where we scrub it and make sure it's accurate, but we don't need the original, and we can send the electronic copy to the carrier. Really, the only originals you may need to send in, again, is either a check if you've collected a check, or if there's a 1035 exchange involved. Some carriers do require original 1035 paperwork. But really after that, if you've emailed the app, we're done. You don't need anything else after that. I'm going to wait for a second, see if we have any more questions, but these are really good ones so far. Looks like we're right at our 20-minute time frame. We usually try to keep these pretty short and sweet. We know you're all very busy. So looks like we don't have any more questions coming in. So again, thank you all so much for your time and your attendance here. This means a lot to us. If you have any questions or any follow-ups, again, here's our contact info. Reach out to us. Let us know if you need to re-review anything on here, or maybe later in the day you might have a question that comes up that you didn't think of while you were here on the call. Reach out to us, let us know, and we'll get you taken care of. And as a reminder, just one last time, 2 weeks from today, we're going to be doing the next subject, which is the basics of the EAP process. So you can register for that as well as any other webinars that we'll be hosting on the LFS website. If you go to the Education tab and scroll down to the Quick Class Schedule, you'll see a list of all the upcoming webinars we have. Register for as many of them as you like. The more the merrier. We'd love to see as many people on here as possible, and we'll go from there. Also, anybody that has registered for this call, you will be receiving a recorded copy of it later in the day, so keep an eye out for that as well. With that being said, again, thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful day.